The Student Art Podcast is sponsored by The Rookies. There is simply no better way to launch a career and start sharing your amazing work online. Throughout their website, you can create your own portfolio, enter lots of contests that take place all year round, and has an incredible community for non-professional digital artists. From hobbyists, students, self-taught artists, to even people wanting to make a career change, The Rookies community brings everyone together, allowing you to be surrounded by people on the same journey as you. So if you want to showcase your portfolio, grow as an artist, and track your progress, sign up to The Rookies today. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Baxter, and today is episode 57 of the series. The podcast is a weekly series where I bring on guests from the film and game industries to talk about their journey and thoughts on student education. The podcast is sponsored by The Rookies. It's amazing having these guys on board, so make sure to give them a follow and check their website in the link in the description below. But as always, most importantly, we have an amazing guest for you guys today. We have 3D character artist Brodie Hart on the show. How you doing, Brodie? Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm good, thank you very much for having me on.
Anytime. So, as always, everyone is tuning in. The most important part is the guest. So before we even start the show, all of you go spam the follow button on Brodie's artwork, her social media. I know so you use Twitter, Instagram, ArtStation. Do you use anything else?
Pretty much, mostly I use Twitter and link to ArtStation on that a lot. So
awesome. So as always, before you even start, everyone make sure to go spam that button. And as always, you'll be able to see Brodie's artwork on the slideshow in the back playing right now. And with that said, so as always, Brodie, just start off with basic introductions. Tell us a wee bit about yourself, what you do, and I guess the big question, like, what got you into art?
My name's Brodie, and I went to the same university as Ross. We both went to Abertay University, which is in Dundee, which is where I'm from. So I kind of got into art. I've always been into art. My family's always been really arty. My mum went to art college. My granddad worked at the art college that's in Dundee as well. Mm-hmm. So it's always been there, and sort of fell into the computer art side of it purely because I didn't really know what I was doing after school, and I saw that there was a course that was game development, computer arts, and I was like, I can do art and I like games, I'll just apply for it on a whim, and I've kind of fallen to where I am now. So
awesome. So like, was it like, obviously, like you were saying, like you weren't sure where you wanted to go to start off with, but when did kind of like character art become a thing, or was it originally environment art, or like what was the kind of thing for you when you first started at Abertay?
Yeah, so it'd always been 2D, and when I first got to Abertay, that was my first time doing any form of digital art. It'd always been traditional, and so the first 2 years I kind of focused on concept art, did a little bit of animation, and it was always character centric. Mm-hmm. I've always sort of been strongest with life drawing and human form, that kind of stuff, and then slowly tried to do a bit of environment stuff. Didn't really mesh as well with that, and then eventually sort of felt that I was plateauing a bit. I wanted to look into 3D, and then here on out have been trying to learn and develop 3D character art skills.
Awesome, that's amazing. Because like that's the thing, is like at the end of the day when it comes to the podcast, like the great thing is that everyone always has their different take of where they start. Like there's no kind of direct path. Like everyone kind of comes in different directions, etc. And like that's the beauty of it. And like when it comes to your artwork, like she makes amazing artwork. Like Brodie does really cool character artwork, and like that was the thing. So we were just talking before the podcast. So we were talking about anime, and everyone knows I know nothing about anime, and it's the thing that I'm still trying to learn. But it's like when I saw your Spirited Away character, it actually kind of reminded me of the one kind of sort of anime. Well, actually, I think you actually like it. So I used to love The Last Airbender.
Oh god, yeah, I've been like binge watching that recently.
It's literally like that was like one of my favorite shows as a kid.
Yeah, I think there's like a weird discourse about if that's an anime or not, because it's obviously got huge Eastern influence, but it's made by or funded by Nickelodeon, which is a Western company. So yeah, I don't know. It's still great. It's still amazing. So
that debate's always been around it. It's like that's the only thing I can ever answer with, because it's like there's so many things that I've missed out on. And
you're going in pretty strong with that, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Yes, I've started strong. Woo! Because like when it comes to like inspiration and stuff, like what inspires you? Like what kind of do you have a favorite artist, or like what kind of inspired you to do character art?
So with the character art stuff, it's all very stylized, and obviously like Blizzard are just kind of pillars in stylized art community, and it's kind of one of those things that I'm just taking an awful lot of influence from them at the moment, because I'm still quite early into it. I've only been doing this for maybe 2.5, 3-ish years. And then if a style develops through that, that's great. If not, it's all just about learning the fundamentals. But actually, an awful lot of art that I like is 2D artists. A lot of really like graphic stuff. Probably one of my favorite artists is a guy called Sachin Ten, and he does these beautiful like illustration pieces, and they're all like just really graphic looking. They're really bonny, and he does a lot of sort of what are they called? Like cross section.
Oh yeah, I like them. Yeah. I like them. I love them.
Like cut-ins to sort of like he's done this series of sort of perfume bottles, and they're all done at sort of isometric angles and stuff like that. But
wow.
It's completely not what I'm doing, but he's amazing with color and really nice fluid shapes and designs and stuff. I don't know. I take sort of influence from everything. I'm really into fashion, really into character design. I think a lot of that all helps as well. I think sort of staying linear does work for a lot of people, but I think I kind of need to look at a lot of things.
No, so, that's awesome. Because like that's the thing as well. It's like you've just said one word that I don't know why I've never mentioned on the podcast. Like, why have I never talked about fashion? What am I doing wrong here, Ross?
Yeah, I remember. When I did a lot of character art stuff, sort of concept stuff in uni. Remember Ryan Locke, the lecturer? Like, I always talk to him about this a lot. And every time I did a character art sort of project, I would always base it on like some type of fashion or type of culture, and I always went down like a sort of Asian route, like either west or east. I remember I did one that was based all of like traditional Indian clothing and stuff. It was just really interesting, like learning about it all. I kind of get a bit roped into the learning process.
Cool.
And sometimes I'll get lost in it, and then I'm like, I need to rein it back in. But that was before, when I was doing more of the concept stuff. But I just think that's an area that gets glossed over quite a lot sometimes. Or not glossed over, but I think when people sometimes start out, a lot of it is about, right, it's a goblin and it's this and it looks like this, but a lot never really comes into the narrative of clothing. And funnily enough that you bring up Avatar, it's a show that does it really well. It's the world building and how that incorporates into everything.
Oh, this is so awesome. Because like when it comes to like fashion and stuff, like, so I also have a passion for character. It's just the thing that I've not really. So it was actually the thing that I did for my 4th year. I was doing like anatomy sculpts and stuff, but I just never kind of I don't know. I went down environment art because I knew like it's what I was good at and I loved it. But there's like so many things about character art that I think has slowly kind of. I'm not sure the best phrase is to say it's getting lost, but it's like what you're saying there about fashion. It's like everyone kind of sticks to like so much of what they already know rather than branching out, and they kind of they get so comfortable that they forget about, like for you're saying about fashion and stuff. Like there's so many amazing avenues to go down like that route. And like speaking of fashion, is there any kind of like what do you kind of research into when it comes to fashion and design for clothes? Is it like magazines, books, websites? What kind of is like your main source of material?
I mean, I guess like the way that I'll go about something is that I'll look at a concept and I'll look at like, okay, how do I look at that from like 2D to 3D? But before, when it was more sort of designing, it would a lot just be to do with what I personally liked already. A lot of it would be, I'd go down my Pinterest boards and be like, okay, there's a lot of like street fashion here, or there's a lot of sort of whatever previous. I always like going around different time periods as well. I remember for my honours project, I did the dumbest thing. I was like, oh, I'll do like sort of Chinese influence, forgetting that there's 500 dynasties in China, and trying to focus down one narrow path of it is really difficult, because even like the most amazing fashion expert doesn't know everything, because it's just, there's too much. But yeah, I think it's just personal interest.
Definitely.
But then a lot of like that, I think that is something why I do like Overwatch a lot, is that it does try and take elements and still keep them. Like things like Symmetra has really interesting designs. I think a lot of times you will. What's quite sad is with a lot of maybe games or films even, Star Wars is another really good example of these amazing sort of conceptual ideas that came across, and then the final product is actually a really diluted version of that, and it's almost just so much of it gets lost by trying to keep it still
Yeah.
appealing to a wide audience. So
Yeah. Like they kind of get trapped in trying to, I guess, like you said, it's like everyone always wants obviously to grow their audience, branch out and stuff, but they kind of lose sight of like the art side of things and like exploring their creativity, and just like there's so much great opportunity there. And I think it's like so many artists, like even myself at times, it's like I know what kind of art that I love to make, but then I have to realize it's like for example, like if I was to go down say Chinese environment route, like there'd be so many skills that I would develop just by branching out there, because it's obviously something I've never done before. So it'd be going into my so something that's not in my comfort zone.
yeah, definitely, it's just like a problem solving experiment basically, instead of sort of I have to make a shoe. It's like, oh, I have to make a shoe I've never seen before, and works completely different. Yeah, I don't. It's interesting.
So when it comes to obviously like all the pieces that you worked on, have you kind of ever had like a favorite character artist like throughout, or is there always just been constantly kind of doing obviously like you said, like doing the art that you like to make, or has there ever been somebody that you've been like, that's my favorite artist?
That's really interesting, actually. I hadn't thought about this before. When I started out, so yeah, I'd say I started doing it in my honours project and kind of dove right into it, which was the worst idea. And then throughout leaving uni, with the spare time that I can outside of work, I've been trying to develop and build the skill set. I did start with, I'd maybe have all these different artists that I liked. Honestly, I probably don't even think I could remember some right now, because it's completely changed. No, it's completely changed. It's like because once you learn more about the process, your idea of what you like changes because you understand it a bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
But now I'd say the people who I like the best are my peers and people who I look up to, but people who I've met. Yeah. And one of the best things I've found in the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, it's why I really like Twitter, is the 3D character, and not just character, but the 3D art community on Twitter is brilliant. I think it's small and niche enough. Not so much niche, but 2D illustrative art is huge and everyone does it, and there's just so much of it, and it's great. It's lovely to see it. But with the 3D art community, specifically towards characters, the same names keep cropping up, and you'll find an awful lot of people know each other, and we're all messaging each other and giving each other a lot of advice and critiquing, and it's really nice that it's sort of naturally come together like that. And I think now more than ever, I just scroll down my timelines and I see works and processes of projects that people are working on, and that's the most inspiring thing, is seeing all these people who are in the same position as me, people who are probably working full time but then still finding time to learn new skills. A lot of times you'll see them sort of try something that they've never done before because it's something they could learn, and that's quite inspiring to just be like, oh, we're all in the same boat, and it's not a race. Sometimes I think when you start to idolize artists specifically, you're seeing these people who've maybe been in the industry for 30 years who have all this time to work on stuff, and it's almost like that's a great thing to look up to, but it just is so overwhelming and sometimes unachievable because you have to think about your limitations, whereas seeing people who are in the same area as you, or maybe just a few steps higher than you, is kind of like, oh, that's quite attainable, that's quite achievable. So yeah, sorry, that was a really wordy answer for a simple question.
No, that was an amazing answer. That was a great answer, because like that's the reason why, that's like the best answer you could possibly say, because like when it comes to the podcast, it's the kind of like I like to bring on people from all backgrounds, all skill sets, you name it, and like the reason for that is exactly what you said, is because when it comes to art, I think well, I'm pretty much just saying exactly what you just said. It's like we value so many great artists, but we forget to realize is that everyone else has like a voice, and like there's so many great talents who could be, say, they're only 16 to 20 to 30 to even 50, you name it, whatever age, and it's acknowledging the fact that at the end of the day we're all just artists. Like we're not like I get it, obviously we all like certain artists have bigger names and stuff, whether they've worked on certain films or games, and therefore they have a bigger following, but at the end of the day they're still people.
Yeah, I think a lot of what has been quite eye-opening since the few years of leaving uni is that I've been able to meet up with people who I was like idolized or followed online for a while, or at least be like, oh, I love their stuff, and then I meet them and they're just lovely, and a lot of the time they just want to talk and sort of hang out most of the time, and it's just like, oh, this is quite a weight off my shoulders sort of thing. I think, yeah, it's the more and more that is what I'm encountering, the more and more that seems to be the norm, honestly. So there's a weird sort of celebrity culture in games industry, and it's sort of like, it's almost just because everything's done online that's come out of nowhere. But then when you actually meet a lot of these people, they're like, yeah, I don't know what that's about.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like, I was listening to, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him. So it's a character artist called Glauco Longi.
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
So he's a pretty well known artist, and I would love to have him on the podcast. He was at Naughty Dog for many years. I'm trying to think. Sony Santa Monica is where is that where he's at the moment? And basically, there was one time he was on the on a podcast talking to someone, and he was like, this person came up to him and was just like, I'm pretty sure it was Glauco, I'm 100% sure. Came up to him and like kind of like was that nervous, like, because they thought they were like approaching like a celebrity, and like he just said, I'm just human, hello.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you doing? Tell me about yourself, it's okay. And like the person just completely relaxed. I'm sure it was him, but it's just, it's always interesting. It's like I get it, like we all have our idols, and but it's like the most rewarding feeling when you talk to someone that you like, how can you say, admire or inspired by.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think especially with sort of like uni, there's this weird element ingrained of networking and opportunity and networking and all this stuff. So I think in your head you sort of build up this, oh, if I don't do this right, I've completely fumbled it, and that's it. It was my one shot. And you sort of accidentally or subconsciously go into a lot of interactions thinking that this is not necessarily that this is an opportunity, but I really need to make a good impression, which you should with any interaction with anyone. Like,
of course.
It's like you should not punch people in the face. Like that's usually a good way to start off. But but a lot of the time I kind of find that these people, I don't know what a good term to use rather than like these people, but a lot of the time, usually folk just want to stand and chat to you about anything. It doesn't have to be about your work or their work or the industry. It can be just having a chat or a blether and just seeing if you get on with them, and not seeing people as a means to an end sort of thing. And I don't even think a lot of people do that. I think it's just the sort of the networking bubble that people put around these situations, and it seems, I don't even feel like I've really encountered it, honestly. A lot of time when I talk to people, I just chat to them. It's not a business card handover situation a lot of the time. It's
because that's the thing. It's like you nailed it there perfectly. Because when it comes to like obviously when we were at university, they were always like I loved Abertay. I thought it was great, and like when they were obviously saying like networking is important, but it's all down to how you come across. Because like it was literally yesterday. Like somebody sent me a connection on LinkedIn, and before even saying hi, they were like it was like, will you hire me? I was like, I don't even have I don't even own a studio or stuff. But it's like certain people's approach is very interesting, and like that's why when it comes to like messaging people or just talking to people, like for example coming on the asking people to come on the podcast, like at the end of the day, it's like I'm just asking people to come on just to have a great chat and to talk about like their journey, and it's like there's so many different ways to approach it, but I just approach it as just a normal conversation, like you're saying. It's like you should just be having fun.
And I wonder if that's just because obviously when you go to uni, the majority of students are young students. That's just how universities are at the moment. So I wonder if it's maybe just a thing that happens with maturity or life experience.
True.
Or just sort of your the things that are important to you change over time. When you're young, you kind of don't have a lot of responsibilities, so you are just sort of thinking ahead of progression and improvement. And as it goes further down the line, you sort of think, do you know what? Like sometimes like a nice chill weekend sounds great. So I don't know.
A nice little break.
Yeah.
It's always important. So speaking of like university and talking about this subject, so as always, I always like to talk about certain questions that I like to kind of. The reason why I keep them quite repetitive is because like there's always a different take people go down. So as always, like, did university teach you how to be ready for the industry? Like, is there anything you think maybe, if you wanted to relate to character art, do you think they could have done anything better?
Yeah, I think that's such a weird one because like hindsight's amazing, but also I didn't know what I was wanting to do in uni, and like
Yeah.
it was one of those things, like I was saying, like I was 19 when I went, and I had a job as well at the same time, so I probably wasn't fully focused in it.
hmm
Um, but
It's a
yeah,
difficult one, isn't it?
it's so like because there's so many routes. Like,
Yeah.
did it prepare me for the industry? Most likely, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now if I didn't go to university.
Okay.
I think what I learned the most was from peers, and that's not to bash the university. I just think uh, the year that we had was really good. I
Yeah.
think that we were really lucky, and people were quite motivating,
hmm
and I don't think I would have learned half as much as I had if I hadn't had the peers there, which wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone to university. So,
Yeah.
and I think that is one of the things about uni. It's not just purely about academic classes and what you are learnt and binary linear progression.
hmm
It's the whole experience. So yeah, I think definitely there's elements to that, but then a lot of where I'm at now is like having a pub job and stuff like that. I think it's just it all comes into one. But
Yeah.
yeah, ready for the industry as in like software, or is it kind of just
Well, I guess like for example, before we even started the podcast, like you were saying that you kind of you felt like you just landed there, and like you were just like you've arrived where you are,
mm,
just out of obviously just doing what you've had to do, and sometimes it's all down to timing, maybe a wee bit of luck, or just being patient with things, working your portfolio, and just making sure you do like work at a good quality and stuff.
yeah, I suppose like things as well like work ethic and that's I think a lot of that comes down to the individual. I know with our uni it was quite relaxed.
hmm
There wasn't a lot of in hours that you did. You kind of just showed up to a couple of classes a week,
Yep.
a couple of tutorials. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one. I think,
It's okay.
yeah, I think it's just because I was kind of fumbling about for the whole time, and then it wasn't till fourth year in my honours project,
hmm
and I sort of completely did a 180, and I was like, I'm going to learn 3D. I've never done it before. I'm going to do it. And the result wasn't good, but it taught me the pipeline. So yeah.
No, but like that was the thing I respected so much when you did that, because it's like making such a transition in your final year, and trying to adapt, because obviously like the biggest trend at the time, like everyone kept talking about how not how it's taken over, but people were saying like, right, 2D artists need to know 3D, and
Yeah.
like
There's a
and
bit of
there's,
fear mongering going on for a bit.
yeah, like it was going on for a while, and like a lot of concept artists were like, oh gosh, like what do I need to know, like how are things are going to change? There's so many great questions like you guys were obviously having
Yeah.
to ask all the time,
I
and
think that's one interesting thing. Sorry.
on you go, that's
Is
fine.
with the 2D concept side, I think it's not necessarily about concept art. I think just maybe the way that unis are teaching concept art is interesting. I think I think
Interesting, what way? that's a
yeah, I
that's a
don't
good way
know.
to.
It's just I think every studio is going to have their own right way of thinking how concept art should be done.
That's true,
And
yeah.
unfortunately, there's no real right way of doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, you get these sort of photo bashing things that create these really realistic environments, which will be great for like a game like Death Stranding. I'm guessing would probably need something like that. But then if you look at like the new Sonic film,
hmm
and they just got oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but he worked on like Sonic Mania, and they
Okay.
just really needed someone who was that sort of creative, really got the spirit of it, just to help them out with it, and it completely did a 180, and it looks amazing. So yeah, just I think it's so difficult. There's no right or wrong way of doing anything. So
Yeah.
it's kind of it's not like an awful lot of other courses out there. Anyway, sorry.
That's
Did
fine.
university teach you how to be ready for the industry? Yes and no. I
Perfect.
don't
Great,
know.
great answer. Yeah. Like, because that's the thing is like the reason why I ask these questions, and I understand like sometimes like a lot of the guests like they'll have different takes on it. Some people will be very kind of yes, it definitely did. Some people say no, but it's all down to, like you said, the experience and your perspective on things. And like, I guess a better way, like, I think the way I should have questioned it is, like, say if you were to go back to uni and you were to be in a course based around character art, what would you like to be taught in order to prepare you better for that character art role, if that makes sense? Would that be an easier question to go with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's...
Or does anything kind of stand out for your character artist? Like, what would you say is a must for character artists?
I really think anatomy's gonna just help you so much. I think I had a much easier time with jumping into character art because I think my anatomy is my strongest part. But that is one part of many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, do you know what's really interesting actually? I've thought about it now.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Is I don't think I did as well in the industry learning environment, in the university learning environment, and I don't think that's the university's fault. I think what was quite interesting was doing my honours project, and because I started working on ZBrush, that wasn't really getting taught. So if I wanted to learn ZBrush, I just had to kind of go off and do it. And then over the next few years, it's kind of an awful lot has been self-teaching. And it's not so much that I therefore don't think the uni was valuable. I think that the way I was kind of approaching uni for the first few years was that I had to be taught it. And then as I developed further in, I realised that it was teaching you to teach yourself. I don't know.
No, that's a good answer. Yeah. It's like,
I think a lot of people are scared to learn software, which is why what I've loved about the experience is that I'm quite happy to just go and learn a piece of software now, whereas before I was petrified of the idea of doing that. So.
Because didn't you? I remember. I'm pretty sure it was. There was like 3 of you that used it. I'm trying to remember the software. So you guys, what was the software you used for UVs? Or like, no, it wasn't UVs. It was painting.
Oh.
What was it? It's not ZBrush. It was similar to ZBrush. It was What was it called?
Was this for sorry, what was it for? 3D or?
So you did so you're really good at doing the stylized painting, and you used to do. I'm trying to think what it was, and because I haven't heard it being brought up in a long time. Because I was actually going to talk to you about just like how you approach like your painting and stuff for your characters, etc. I was just wondering.
Because there's Substance Painter.
Yeah.
And there's 3D Coat.
That's the one. There we go.
Yeah.
I was wondering what it was called.
Yeah, because that's still more of your PBR sort of stuff. But my brain just fogged up there.
It's okay.
But no, I still sorry, it's just because you brought up the painting, because I still do all my painting in Photoshop. I just prefer doing my painting in Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's completely like that's the 2D element that's not going away from me, is that I still do like hand painting textures for stuff. I just prefer the look that they give them. I think a lot of materials can look a bit icky. So yeah, I don't know. It's just that's another thing. It's all just personal preference. So,
no, but
then the whole thing is just about when you get into a studio, it's what they want, really, I suppose.
Yeah. But like that's the main thing as well, because like you said there, like obviously like, that's what you feel comfortable with, and like that's what you enjoy. And I think a lot of people have to kind of realize that it's like software is no longer like everyone keeps like, for example, when I'm doing live streaming, everyone always asks me who's a student, what software to use. And I'm like, what software do you enjoy to use? It's like no longer like a debate, and it's like that's the thing, is like when you were using 3D Coat, because I've never used it before, and I've just never used it, and like, but if you think you do better work in Photoshop and that's what you are most comfortable with, then go with that. And
well, that's the thing, I don't even use like 3D Coat in my pipeline anymore. I've just cut it out completely.
Yeah, you just removed it.
Yeah, I just I use Maya a lot more for stuff now. So that's the thing. I still don't have a full pipeline. I keep swapping and changing each one. I'm like, oh, I could try it in here, and oh, I could try it here. Like,
always experimenting.
I think I've used 3 different types of software to try out bakes this year, and it's like,
wow.
Yeah,
I admire your courage.
I think honestly, getting over the fear of just trying things out. Yeah. Honestly, I'm still learning it, and I still don't. It's just, I think it's learning, understanding the process will ultimately get you further because then you can try it out
Yeah.
and see what works for you. But until you understand the process, you'll kind of have the fear of branching out from it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I totally agree. It's the whole concept of experimenting and realizing that, like, until you start experimenting, it's like what we talked about earlier on the podcast. It's about, like, for example, you were saying about like the branching out to Chinese art, etc. And until you like experiment with it, like, you're not gonna know whether you like it or not.
Yeah, definitely. And like you might end up hating it, and
Yeah.
then which is great because you know you don't want to go down that route, or you might have learned just something along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everyone just gets stuck in what they know because
Yeah.
it's tiring to learn new things.
It definitely is. It's always getting stuck in your comfort zone, but that's the great thing
Yeah.
because like I get so obsessed about ZBrush that I forget about everything else. Like I'm just
Oh
like,
God, yeah.
see, I could just sculpt ornate artwork for days, and I'm like, I don't need to learn that.
Yeah, it's been so frustrating this year. I think I've learned an awful lot of. I've been doing ZBrush because I enjoy it, and then I look back and I'm like, do you know what? I could have modeled an awful lot of that much quicker. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh,
I
screw
like
it. It's still
slightly.
ZBrush. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even this year I've been flitting about between because I got really interested in the new Blender, and I
Hmm.
was like, oh, I want to see what this can do and what I can't do. So I've been flipping between Maya and Blender this year a lot, and it's not to say one's better than the other. It's just
Yeah.
curious to see what one could do better, what one could do not as good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's excellent. So there's actually one thing that you've done that I wanted to take part in, but I just don't have the skill set yet to do. And it's two artists that I really love. So you took part in the Retrogasm art competition.
Oh yeah, no, I tried to finish it, and then I was I was in the middle of buying a flat, so that kind of petered out pretty quickly.
No, that's cool. It's okay. It's like when I saw your piece, I was like, it's still awesome. Like that's the only thing that matters. Because I'm actually a big fan of Lena Lazar and John Troy Nickel,
Yeah,
and
yeah, they do really, really good stuff.
like I just love I Has Toys, and
Mm.
like that's the weird thing. So it's like I'm not really an anime person. Like I literally know like nothing about anime, but like literally 5 or 6 years ago. So I've been watching Troy's stream for 6 years,
Mm.
and it's just like what they've been doing over at I Has Toys. It's amazing,
Yeah.
and like just like the style. It's like it was so fresh when I saw it. Like I've never seen it before. Like they did like so many great characters. But I was just
Yeah,
wondering
yeah.
like what was it like, or like what's your thoughts on the Retrogasm art competition, or just is there any kind of sources out there, whether it is Retrogasm, or is there any like good competitions or things that you think would be good for character artists to learn from, like websites, etc.
Mm. Yeah, no, sorry, it's just because you were asking earlier about who I looked up to before I started. And those two definitely, now that I've remembered. And Blair Armitage,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't.
another great
Yeah,
artist.
she's brilliant because she did that amazing sort of devil sculpt thing that is just stunning. And I just looked at that for hours and hours, and I was like, I want to be able to do that one day. And still, I'm not anywhere close to it, but like honestly, their stuff's amazing. But yeah, honestly, that was the first time I'd ever tried it out, and it was one of my pals was actually talking about it, and he
Hmm.
was wanting to jump into it, but he was sort of too busy as well. It's a shame because I think loads of people were wanting to jump into it. It was just sort of like we all don't have time, and we all have other projects that we
Too
all have
busy.
5 projects that we haven't finished. Yeah, I don't know, like I I love, oh my gosh, I think everyone should get this extension. It's so good. It's on Google Chrome and it's an ArtStation plugin.
Okay.
And it's basically every time you refresh, or sorry, every time you open a tab, it brings up a piece of art and you can filter it to what you want it to be. If you
Ooh.
want it to just be characters or
Okay.
it's just if you type in like an ArtStation, if you go to Google plugins and then type in ArtStation and it'll probably be one of the first ones that comes up, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Wait, what's it
Like,
called? Sorry.
I can't. If I go to my plugins.
Because like what I can do is once I finish the podcast, I'll make sure to go check out. Like I'll try and find it and then I'll link it in the description. So
Yeah, I can't bring it up. I have no idea where to find it.
that's all right.
But it's
I'll
just
have a look.
yeah, it's just for Chrome where you get your plugins.
Mhm.
There's an ArtStation one, and basically every time that you load up a new tab, a new piece of art will come up. And I think that's been brilliant. Like every time I'm just about to go on Twitter or YouTube and I have it on in work as well, I just find some new things keep popping up in new artists, and it allows you to send it to your likes and stuff like that. That's been fantastic.
How have I never
Um,
heard of this?
no, I only heard about it a couple of months ago, and it's just so nice. Each day to see a bit of new art popping up. But yeah, no, as far as like competitions and entering stuff, I don't really do a lot of it. I think just, especially with full 3D characters, they take so long to do in your spare time, and you kind of want to learn as you go, and the pressure of having a time constraint just means you'll end up rushing it and not producing something, and producing something you're not happy with. And that's why I kind of just took a pause on mine. I was like, right, I've got the high poly sculpt. I was like, I'll see if I can get the rest of it done, and I ended up not being able to. And now looking back, there's things I want to change on the sculpt, so I'm really glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing I found about this character stuff. I've kind of been a bit stubborn, and every time I've talked to people, they've sort of said, just do little projects, just do little props and stuff, and I'm like, no, I want to do full things. And then it ends up, I look at my stuff and I'm just sort of like, oh, I don't like any of it. And it's sort of like, I love it for what I've learned from it, but because each one takes you maybe, I don't know, if you do a big project, it can maybe take you up to something of 3 months in your spare time and weekends to do it. And so in that time you've learned so much. So it's the irony of almost every time you finish a project, you look back on it and you're like, but I could do it so much better now. It's so frustrating.
It's the self-doubt you get. It's like, it's crazy though, because like I completely get it. Like, so many artists are like no joke, it's got to be like 99% of artists are like that, and like it's okay to be like that. And I think it's just down to realizing like the one thing though I'd always say to take from that is it's okay to kind of like post work. Like, I understand obviously you want to post good work, but posting work to get feedback is always a great thing to do.
God, yeah, I think that's one of the best fears to get over. That I remember that being a huge thing in uni, is people were just so scared of posting stuff, and it's I think if you don't get past it, you never will, and you'll only hurt yourself by doing that. So.
Yeah, like it was just crazy, because it's like we'd be studying, say, I don't know, say we're doing our third year group project. So when we're in Abertay, we had this massive group project, and like you'd be focusing on doing a piece, or even if it's just a personal project, and everyone would kind of be, depending on the team you're with, but it's like so many people would be like, oh, I'm not done yet, I give me time, and I'm like, it's okay, it's a team project, it's fine.
Yeah. One thing that's I've really noticed in my job is, because I'm still like a lower position and I have seniors above me, is that I work differently from other people, and like that everyone has their own processes and stuff like that, and I think not everyone would be comfortable doing this, but other people might be. And it's a lot of times I'd be given a task to do in work, and I'd be laboring over it, and I'd just be like, I'm not really happy with it, I'm just going to send it, or not send it off, but put it through its first approval process so I can get the feedback I need on it, rather than spending the next 5 hours laboring over it. I'd rather just, I know that it's not right, so I'd usually just put it up and just be like, I don't know, like needing a bit of feedback on this, kind of a bit lost, and then just wait, and then I'd get some feedback, and then from that feedback I could improve it and get it done in a shorter space of time than if I spent hours and hours laboring over it, not wanting to show my leads. And it's just sort of like, it's a time efficient thing, it saves me more of a headache, it gets a fresh pair of eyes on it. It's like there's no harm in saying that you need a bit of help, and then also realizing that someone else might have a better solution than you might. So yeah,
that's a great answer, because like, that's a great answer, awesome. Because like when it comes to kind of just general like just going back to the point we were saying about uni and that, it's like at the end of the day, obviously, like when you're working in the studio, like you don't own the work, and but obviously you want to do the best work that you can. And once you accept the fact that it's okay to get feedback, it's like we're all a team at the end of the day. Like everyone's working together to produce the best result that you possibly can. And the only way to kind of get over that hurdle is doing exactly what Brodie was doing, And it is a hard step for many artists to take. But once you accept the fact that it's like people aren't going to ambush you and say, oh, like this is dreadful and stuff, unless you're with an evil team. I don't know, but it's like evil team, great choice of words. We'll just rock with it, okay? But it's just like when it comes to kind of feedback, like that's the thing. You have to acknowledge that feedback is there to support you and make you produce better results. And until you kind of accept that fact, you're not going to grow. And once again, like this has been a thing with me as well. Like I've gone through the same thing as Brodie. once you go over through that hurdle, you get so much more confident and you feel more relaxed. And I think it's the relaxed thing that personally, like, I'm not sure what it's like for you, Brodie, but it's the concept of relaxation and being comfortable is the most important thing when it comes to getting that feedback, basically.
I think, yeah, and being honest as well. I definitely have strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes I'll be given something, I'll be like, oh, right, okay, it's not really in my strongest suit. So I don't fret personally if I'm not doing well with it, because of course, like, say if I was going to pick up a project tomorrow, like a personal project, and I was like, okay, I'm going to create a goblin or something, and I'd be like, I've never done anything like that before, I've never looked into it, I've never done the research, I've never put the time or the hours to try and learn something, and then if I spent like 10 hours on it and it ended up looking rubbish, or I was getting stressed or upset about it, like, of course I've only ever put 10 hours into that thing compared to my characters where I've put thousands of hours into. It's sort of just knowing your humility, knowing that you can't be good at everything. So that's why you work in a team of people.
You mentioned a great word there. I was just wondering if you're okay to mention or to talk about it, is like the concept of stress, or just like what, when it came to university and stuff, was there anything that like, for example, the biggest thing, like the thing that drove me crazy was the whole concept of grades. Like I'm like, I've never cared about grades ever since. I'm like, grades and just like value for certain things, I'm just like ignored it now. But it's like, in terms of like the concept of stress, is there anything that kind of helped you over the years in terms of how to kind of deal with things better?
I think it's weird because I don't think I did deal with bad situations in uni very well. I remember just not getting good grades for my honours stuff, and I think I just wasn't meshing well with the academic side, and I never have. I've never done well academically, or I've done pretty average. It's just never something that I've responded well. I don't know. It's never something that my brain works. If I've always been just down the creative route. Academics, terrible for me. For stress, oh god, I'm still not good at doing this.
I know it's a bit of a random one to put out there. It's just like like obviously everyone tackles it differently, and like for me to once again, it goes back to what you said there about getting feedback. It's getting, like, talking to people. And I think talking, like, for example with me, talking with people has just always been my kind of, like, I could talk forever, so like if I'm talking to someone, like, I feel so sorry for the other person. They're just going to accept and listen to my voice all the time.
I mean, I think with the grade thing, I think when I was at uni, and this is like probably not a good thing to say on a podcast where you're talking about education and how good it is, it's just a lot of the time I didn't care about the grade because I sort of thought, who cares? Like, if the end result is good, where does the number come into it? It doesn't matter. I'm doing art, great. I'm doing art. What the objective of art is to make it appealing and good and or interesting or creative. It's not about a number formula to it. And then also, I think I got a 2-1 in uni. I have no idea what I got.
That's amazing. That's great.
I can't even remember.
Wait, you just said to us that you did bad at uni. How dare you, Brodie, say that?
I don't know.
That's brilliant.
I can't even remember if that's what I got. But then it's like, but then none of these things ever stopped me applying for jobs or never stopped people talking to me. Or, I mean, you go on Twitter and you speak to all these people and get feedback. They're not asking you what your grades are while it's happening. So I don't know. I think there's been a conversation over the last couple of years about should universities change their formula for certain courses because the grading system doesn't really work. Like, our dissertation as well just sort of seemed a bit redundant to what we were doing. I don't think I quite got the concept of a dissertation. I think I got a C. Like, I didn't get it.
I'm so happy that you said this though, because you're literally one of the few people that's said it the way that I have. Like, that's the exact same opinion as me. And I'm like, finally.
But it's not to like say therefore it's bad. It's
of course.
It's sort of like, but then it's so subjective. It's weird. Some people will respond really well to getting good grades, and that'll help and encourage them. And you come from a background in an education system which does that, so that makes sense. I don't know. I fully accepted from growing up that I wasn't made for an academic situation. I was made for just sort of
being creative,
get stuck into it and seeing what I could what the outcome could be, and
Perfect.
fortunately it worked out. So
No, like that's one of the best answers I've ever got, because like so many people, I wouldn't say like they struggle with answering the question, but it's just like when it comes to the whole concept of grades, it's like I get it. Obviously, you want to, like, the grades kind of help you kind of structure your mentality in terms of it. At least it gives you a goal, and having a goal is great, and it keeps you on maybe like the right path and stuff. But the only downside, which is the one that always I think hurts the most, is the fact that when people get given a grade and say they're good at art, then they base their art off the grade rather than the art.
yeah,
And that's where so it's like you can make the best art piece, but just because maybe you've not done 50 pages, like for example, don't do whatever I did in uni. I just did too much work, like too much written stuff. So I was focusing too much on the written stuff, and I could have had so much time put towards my art to improve my art. And like we were discussing here, is like at the end of the day, it's like these studios don't go like, right, how many A's did you get? Like, they'll never say that.
And that's the thing as well, when you're looking for a job, you're going to, as much as you're trying to find a job, and I do fully understand the franticness of being unemployed or working in a job that's not your career, and that sort of frantic, oh, I need to get a job, at the end of it, you still want to get somewhere that's going to fit well with you. Like, you don't just want a job for the sake of having one, you want one that's going to work with what you're doing and make you feel good about what you're doing. Like, obviously a job's a job, you're still going to have your stress days and your days where you're worked up, but it's not just the case of XY formula will get me this outcome. That's not really ever how it's going to work.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, because like when it comes to by the way, that's the funny thing about on the podcast. So literally every like one of my lecturers reminds me as well. The amount of times I say the word amazing is just far too much. It's like my what's the word, keyword, or my go-to word.
Yeah, I don't want to listen to this back and hear how much I sort of stutter or
oh no, you've done
try
great.
And think of words.
It's just so funny. I could do like a counter just how many times I say the word amazing.
Yeah, gosh.
But like that's the thing. It's like when it comes to just like you said it perfectly, because when it comes to like the whole concept of finding a job, at the end of the day, it's like you said, you want to be comfortable. You want to make sure that you feel like you're in the right place, and like that's the thing. Is like you don't have to put this pressure on yourself. Like maybe, or I can get to this certain studio right away. Like there's so many great opportunities out there. It's just down to maybe doing the research to kind of explore like where things are at, etc. around you. Whether is there like a stylized studio near you that do a particular thing that you're interested in, then go with that, and accept the fact that like you can just work your normal job. Like for example, I worked in a company called The Nelm, so it's like a home retail kind of store, and like I was like, I'm not applying to any job in art or film until I focus on my art, like my portfolio, to get where I wanted to go. And I didn't care if I was just doing a normal job, because at the end of the day it was great. I was able to talk to just people on the tills, etc., and that was fine.
Yeah.
And
I was the exact same situation. Yeah, and it's like it's so battered into your brain when you're younger, but the skills that you learn in these other sort of just day-to-day jobs help you so much. It's ridiculous. Like, just sort of, I think also kind of trying to remember that your job is a lifelong career, and it may change. You might drop out of this, you might go into film, or you might completely do something else. You might go into community management. No one really knows. I think I definitely get that sort of one-track mind and sort of thinking in the short term of how do I fix my situation right now, and it's kind of like your first job could be a stepping stone, or it could just help you get some skills that you need for something else, or you might just start low and build your way up and build your skill set up. It's not like once I hit 25 I need to be at this point, when I'm 30 I need to be a lead, or it's, and not everyone has these huge high ambitions either. Some people just want to work in art. So
no, that's a perfect answer, because like I get it, like obviously we have to all survive and stuff. As drastic as I'm trying to say it, but it's like we all have to get by, make sure that we have our food, etc. We can have a healthy living and stuff. But it's great to have goals and stuff, but realize like the biggest priority for everyone who's tuning in right now is simply just be like, you should be having fun doing what you're doing. And like, for example, all the posts that you've been doing on Twitter, you can tell that you're enjoying your work, and like that's great. And like that's the thing, it's like everything that you guys are doing right now, Like, there's no rush to be, like what Brodie was saying, to be like the lead artist or a senior artist, you name it. Maybe it's manager one day. It's doing it at your own pace and appreciating that things take time.
Yeah, and enjoying it as well, and not letting other parts of your life take a step back just for that. Like, you don't want to be getting 10 years down the line and you've ended up with this fantastical career, but
Yeah.
you're completely stressed and you've lost all your hair because you worried so much in your 20s. Like, you want to be able to enjoy the process and not get to an end point where you end up resenting it because you're so stressed out as well.
Yeah, you want to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. So, Brodie, I think I told you about this. So, at the end of every podcast, there's a thing called 500 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's a bunch of random questions, all fun questions. So it could be like favorite film, you name it. So there's no pressure question whatsoever. But if you feel like you don't answer the question, just say pass, and I'll move on to the next question. And so this is going to be entertaining because like every buddy always has like a different answer and stuff, and it's like just so many random conversations come about. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Well, this might be an easy one first. Favorite anime and why?
Full Metal Alchemist. The world building's amazing and the characters are amazing.
Wait, say that again. What's it called? Sorry.
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because there's 2 versions of it.
Right, I'm writing this down because, like I said to Brodie, I was like, I've not watched any of this. Right. What is your biggest fear?
Oh gosh, no, I was gonna get too real. Pass. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to bum everyone out.
It's alright, okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yes, good choice. Perfect.
Yeah. I do like cats, but yeah, it's gotta be dogs.
Yeah, it can't be dogs. Always, for me, dream dog. I can't wait until I move into a flat that allows me to have a dog, but golden retriever all the way.
Oh, I like little ones. I like all dogs actually, but I like little ones, little smelly ones.
Perfect. Right, this is an interesting one because I know pretty much everyone's gonna like. Well, they hate me because I'm not up to date, but I know you love it. Favorite Pokemon?
Oh, Pumpkaboo or Sableye.
What is the first app you open up in the morning?
Probably Twitter.
Probably Twitter. That's the same with me. It's literally just always Twitter.
Yeah, or Messenger if I have some messages. Yeah.
Right, this is normally the hard one, but then again, I've got a feeling it's going to be easy for you. Favorite game and why?
Oh no, that's actually really difficult. Oh wait, okay, no, it's Hollow Knight.
Damn it! For a second, I thought I had you on the spot.
No, I was like, that's changed in the last 2 years because that game is just fantastic. So.
Wait, what was it before?
Probably a Zelda.
Zelda, right? Okay.
Yeah, probably like Wind Waker or something.
I had a feeling you were going to say that because it's also in your art project, your
Yeah.
portfolio. I was like, she's going to say Zelda at one point. Right, another one. If you were to work another job that did not involve art, what would it be?
Probably something outdoors to do with animals or gardening or something.
All right, okay, sweet, awesome, right, okay.
Or music, something musical.
Yeah. Well, like you said, animals as well. Speaking of animals, do you have a favorite animal?
I like bees and I like whales.
Bees and whales. That's a contrast. Awesome.
Yeah, big and small.
I'm so scared of bees. I'll just be running away from bees. Favorite food?
Tabbouleh. It's like a
Tabbouleh?
Lebanese sort of. It's made with bulgur wheat and mint and tomato. It's a nice light dish. It's lovely.
Perfect. Like this is the thing. I'm sure every time I do this part of the podcast, I'm just getting like I'm just showing to people how little I know.
Yeah.
It's like because I was saying that to Brodie literally before I did the podcast. Like we were talking about games and like I love games, but it's always about watching walkthroughs, etc. And the amount of stuff that I don't know, I'm so sorry. Right, last question. This is a fun one. What was it? What was your favorite childhood TV show as a kid?
I don't know.
I
don't know. It's not a childhood one, but I just have such fond memories of like
a TV show.
Yeah, I just have fond memories of like the early Simpsons. I don't know why. I just think it's so good. Yeah, like first 10 seasons or so.
Because there was one thing that I said because I've asked this question a few times, but did you ever watch Tracy Beaker?
Oh my god, I was actually talking about Tracy Beaker the other night with my pal. Yeah.
It was like the best show ever as a kid.
Yeah, well, my tag name, like my game tag, and the name that I use online all the time is Pinchy, and that's
Right.
from The Simpsons. And it's when Homer buys a lobster and he calls it Pinchy. So that's where that's from.
For years, I was wondering, like, where's this name come from?
Yeah, everyone always asks them, like, it's an episode of The Simpsons.
Perfect. I finally know the truth.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast,
Yeah,
Brodie.
that's really fun.
It's been a pleasure having you on. And as always, everyone tune in. Make sure to check out our work. You've been seeing it in the slideshow as watching the podcast. As always, the podcast is on 11 platforms, so if you're not tuning in on YouTube, you can see it on Anchor, Spotify, you name it. You can find it literally anywhere. And with that said, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.